Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Monday, March 10th. If you were just tuning in, we just went over all of the weekend updates, really all the big moves that took place before free agency opened up. We saw massive quarterback contracts, the biggest non-quarterback contracts, and the Seattle Seahawks getting busy with their trades. In this segment, we turn our attention to the quarterbacks. Look, there's a lot of massive moves going out there and a lot of domino effect that's happening with these moves as the quarterback slots in the NFL, the most important position in all of sports, tries to get filled. We're going to go over that in a second, but before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday, March 10th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the quarterbacks, and we're going to start off with our cover athlete of the episode, Justin Fields. Justin Fields makes it to the Jets. He is currently out of the country right now, but that doesn't stop him from signing a 2-year, $40 million deal, $30 million of which is fully guaranteed. Prior to show host Matt Quinn in the comments, his thoughts, I love this for the Jets. And maybe that's coming from a place of Steelers fan when he says Justin Fields to the Jets. No! This is a move that I absolutely adore. If you're trying to find success in the NFL nowadays, there's a couple things that you need, just in general, right? If you're one of these journeyman quarterbacks, a good offensive line. We can check that off for the Jets. It's not the greatest in the world, but it's not a weakness. A good defense is the other part of that. Check. The Jets have a great defense. They lose a couple pieces in free agency, but they're able to retain a lot of the key ones. This is still going to be a good Jets defense. And last but not least, you need to have those weapons. And that is a check plus, right? You have one of the best running backs in the NFL in Breece Hall. You have a top 15 receiver in the NFL in Garrett Wilson. And now you have his college quarterback, Justin Fields, coming to the Jets, providing that extra ability on the ground, which he sort of showed in Pittsburgh when he played 6 games, went 4-2. But I absolutely love this move for Justin Fields. It's not the most money he probably could have gotten, but if you were just the league average quarterback, and out of all of the open positions for quarterbacks right now, right, you've got the Giants, the Jets, the Steelers, the Seahawks, the Vikings, the Raiders, the Titans, the Browns, right, all of these teams that could potentially need quarterbacks. The Jets are the best available option. You can talk about the Steelers, right? And they're up there with them, no doubt about it. But I think when it comes down to just blind resume, take the ownership out of it, take whatever, just the names on the rosters, I think that Jets roster, if you can get competent quarterback play on there, this is a team that is going to be the most successful day one under a guy like Justin Fields. Justin Fields, I think, makes the right decision for his career. It's not a lot of money, and it's not a lot of time to be committed to a starting quarterback either. This is a good move by the Jets. It's not going to get them into trouble if it doesn't end up working out. You can get a quarterback in the next draft if it doesn't end up working out. And this is the time for Justin Fields to prove that he really does belong in the NFL. This is the time for Justin Fields to prove that he wasn't a wasted pick, that the Bears made a mistake by throwing him away, but that the Steelers made a mistake by passing over him for Russell Wilson halfway through the season last year. This is his time to prove that he deserves to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, and I think he will do that. At the end of the day, again, even if it doesn't work, just $20 million a year, $30 million guaranteed, that is nothing in the grand scheme of things. Backup quarterbacks are making half as much. This is a great deal, a team-friendly deal, and I love where the Jets are going with this. The other big quarterback to be on the move, we kind of hinted at it in the last segment a little bit, but Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold finds a new home in Seattle. This comes days after the Seattle Seahawks trade away Geno Smith, trade away DK Metcalf, kind of look like they're ready to start all over. The biggest issue with the Seahawks last year was not the defense. It was not the weapons. It was not the quarterback. It was the offensive line. Remember that checklist we went through with the Jets? That first box is a big X. And honestly, as we see in the NFL nowadays, you cannot be successful without a good offensive line. I know there's some problem with the Chiefs' offensive line there, but you have 3 all-pro level guys on the inside, and you have Patrick Mahomes to mask the exterior offensive linemen. So that, in my books, is still a good offensive line, right? There is not a single successful team in the NFL this year that did not have a minimum good offensive line. There's a couple teams that didn't have elite or great offensive lines, but there were no teams in the NFL that were legitimate Super Bowl contenders that had a bad offensive line. And that is just the baseline to entry. The offensive line is so important. The Seahawks had the easy button. It's not an easy button, but they had just the one thing they needed to fix. And instead they go up and they blow it up. They get rid of Geno Smith and they replace him with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is a guy that, as he showed in Minnesota, can have some success. Sam Darnold is a guy that, as he showed in Minnesota, can be a guy that wins you football games. But also, as he showed you in Minnesota, and as he showed you with the New York Jets, and as he showed you with the Carolina Panthers, and as he showed you with the San Francisco 49ers, when you need him the most, when the moment is the brightest, when he is under pressure, behind a bad offensive line potentially, he is a negative. You pay Sam Darnold 3 years, $110.5 million, and on the surface, it doesn't look that bad. In a free agency and quarterback class in the draft that does not look that exciting, that doesn't have anything you really want, the Seahawks voluntarily gave away the best quarterback that will be moved in this year's free agency / draft class for Sam Darnold. That might be one of the biggest blunders that an NFL team has made all year long. This is a mistake. Sam Darnold will get destroyed behind that offensive line. Not only that, but one of the things that let him be so successful in Minnesota is the fact that he had weapons. He had guys like Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and Aaron Jones and all of these amazing wide receivers and running backs and offensive linemen and tight ends that could let him dump off the ball, get the ball out quickly, keep the play going, keep that design going the way you need it to. In Seattle, they had that. They have a good running back room still. I love Kenny Walker. I love me some Zach Charbonnet. That's a pretty good 1-2 punch. You have JSN, who just came into his own as a true wide receiver 1. You had Tyler Lockett, who, yes, is getting old, is a little bit expensive, but was solid. And you have DK Metcalf. Now, 2 of those guys are gone. DK Metcalf, out of here. Tyler Lockett, out of here. These 2 guys that have been staples for the Seahawks team, that wide receiver room for a long time, are all gone. And you're going to let Sam Darnold, of all people, a guy that can be successful in the right system, throw him to the wolves. It is a mess. It is the wrong decision, and it might be the worst decision that any team has made so far in free agency or this offseason. I think the Seahawks are going to pay very dearly for this. If they were going to move off of Geno Smith, they needed to go to full rebuild mode. And instead, they just kind of lost themselves about 3 games. About 3 games a season, maybe even more. But outside of those 2, where do these dominoes fall, right? Because Sam Darnold might have been the prize of everybody's eye in this quarterback class, right? But that doesn't mean it was what everybody wanted. Justin Fields might have been a close second, but there's still a lot of guys out there that are being held up by a couple other decisions, right? You have, for one, a surprising guy that's kind of at front of the logjam in Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is not looking at getting any starting quarterback position, right? But what Daniel Jones is looking at getting is a prime backup role. Daniel Jones is looking at going either to return to the Vikings or potentially to the Colts. There's a bidding war over him and what he might do, but other teams are waiting on taking a risk on some of these older guys like an Aaron Rodgers or a Russell Wilson to see what Daniel Jones does, because Aaron Rodgers could be linked to the Vikings. Aaron Rodgers has been linked to the Giants, has been linked to the Steelers. Discussions are being had over there. But Daniel Jones needs to make that decision first, surprisingly. Aaron Rodgers probably isn't going to make his decision for a little bit of time. That's something to keep an eye out for. But there's a couple teams that, like I said, still need to go and get a quarterback. Namely, the Browns, the Steelers, the Giants, and the Titans. And one of those guys the Titans most likely, can get a quarterback in the draft if they want Cam Ward. Otherwise, they can get somebody and trade away that number 1 overall pick, right? These are options for them. Or they can keep it and draft a guy like Abdul Carter. The Titans have the most flexibility in this situation because they have the last pick and they probably care the least. They can run it back with Will Levis if they wanted even. Not that I would love that, but there is still a little promise in Will Levis's arm. But Aaron Rodgers and the Giants have been closely linked. It doesn't seem like Aaron Rodgers is super interested in playing for the Giants. The Steelers are probably the team that he's the most interested in playing for, but that's just not something that I really see happening too certainly, right? Aaron Rodgers is probably going to take a long time away to come and make this decision, but I think at the end of the day, what's best for his career, probably take that deal with the Steelers. It's just going to be dependent on if the Steelers are willing to offer him what he wants. I'm not sure if any team is really willing to do that. If not, the Vikings come to mind as a potential early starter while J.J. McCarthy continues to get better. Behind him, there's Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson is basically the answer for him is whoever doesn't get Aaron Rodgers between the Giants and the Steelers most likely gets Russell Wilson. But one more person that I think would be really interesting, and I think kind of has fallen to the wayside a little bit, is Joe Milton. Joe Milton started one game at the end of the season for the New England Patriots last year, and he looked amazing. It's hard to judge going up against some backups. It's hard to judge going up against, a team that's not trying too hard. But what Joe Milton did in his real NFL action was amazing. He's a guy that's super athletic, made a lot of great throws, and as a Giants fan, I have really wanted them to bring him in all offseason long. Now, some rumors that I've seen are that he might get moved in the next 24 hours, especially after they brought in Josh Dobbs to be a backup quarterback. They already have Jacoby Brissett on the roster. This is going to be probably not the best spot for a guy like Joe Milton to develop, and I think if he goes to the Giants or the Browns, who traded away Dorian Thompson-Robinson for Kenny Pickett, that's probably the best spot for him. At the end of the day, I think what's going to happen with the quarterback situation, the Giants make a big splash trade for Joe Milton. The Aaron Rodgers makes his decision finally, goes to the Steelers. Russell Wilson ends up playing for the Browns, reuniting with Jerry Jeudy. Probably not Jerry Jeudy's number one option, but at the end of the day, there's not too many good ones. I think the Titans decide to go and draft Cam Ward with that number 1 overall pick after it doesn't look like they're going to get enough suitors, but there's a lot of dominoes yet to fall when it comes to the quarterback market. We will keep our eyes and our fingers on the pulse for everything going on there and keep you updated, but we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, most of the big moves so far this offseason and why free agency hasn't been as shocking and amazing as some might think is because it's all on the defensive side of the ball. There are amazing defenders moving all across the league. We're going to talk about that, the linebacker market explosion, and much more coming up next here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.